So remember growing up and playing board games and all of the skills that it unknowingly taught you in retrospect? Whether it was accounting, keeping track of money, just learning shapes and sizes, learning how to deal with competition. Today, I'm super excited because we have Amishi with us, who's the founder of Upcycler's Lab, a company that creates environmental themed based learning tools for kids. Her vision is an ambitious one to change the mindset and change behavior around sustainability with kids at a really early age. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Bare Thoughts.
I'm so excited to be here, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all. Can you just start off by telling us about yourself?
Sure. So I run this company called Upcycler's Lab. And what we're trying to do through Upcycler's Lab is we're trying to change mindset and behavior around the environment. And we're doing this by creating play-based learning tools for young children who are between the ages of 2 and 9 on environmental topics. So we create board games on topics like waste segregation, puzzles on topics like responsible actions and energy conservation. We also cover topics like ocean conservation, renewable energy, and other such environmental topics. So the goal is that since most behavior in adults is developed by the age of 9, we're trying to create interventions that are, in early education and for very young children, just so that their kind of perspective on the environment is defined at a very early age, and so that they can realize from a very early age that nature is something that is that they have to coexist with, and it's not something that they see as just a resource that they can just take from. So that's basically the vision and what we're trying to do. And right now we worked in a lot of different fields. Before we got to this particular stage, we tried to sell our products online. We sold to parents, we sold to schools, we sold to teachers. And now what we realized is that we wanted to make big impact. So instead of just having like a few hundred people or a few thousand people use our product and then wait for it to catch on, we wanted to make like impact with millions of students at one go. So currently we work with governments, which is where the largest amount of our revenue comes from. So we're working with the Kuwaiti government and the Singapore government. And in Kuwait, they're going to be making our products part of the Green Schools program there. And in Singapore as well, it's going to be compulsory in a whole bunch of schools in a district in Singapore, and hopefully in more districts very soon. So through this method, we can kind of impact people across socioeconomic sort of barriers, and then also like because it's led by government, we know that there will be a lot more impact. We're able to impact more students with just one client, and this is what we're trying to do. Of course, our products are still available for consumers otherwise who feel that they want to be conscious and they want to buy our products, and then we sell them through our website and Amazon and a bunch of other platforms.
Thank you so much for telling us all about Upcycler's Lab. Can you also tell us a little bit about yourself? So how did you sustainability journey? How did you get into this? Where did you grow up? What are your sources of inspiration? Tell us about Amishi before Upcycler's Lab.
Definitely. So yes, I think it's a common thing for the entrepreneur to just talk about the company, and then basically there's no separate entity. It's like your company is you. So I'm glad that you're asking me about me as a person. I need to think more about that one. But yeah, so basically I started in the space of waste and environment in 2013. I was my education. A lot of people ask me what I studied, and it's very different. I studied finance as my undergraduate degree, and then I worked in finance for a bit, and then I went abroad to do my master's in business. And that's when I went abroad, when I was in UK, I realized something clicked for me, because I had this professor who had reached the epitome of finance, right? Like he had worked on Wall Street, and then he had worked in London in the financial markets, and he was making like all the money that you can make in finance. And then he left all of that to go and help set up Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. And he spoke about how fulfilling that was. And then, of course, he came and became a professor at my university. But he was really the person who got us introduced to the concept of social enterprise and the concept of sustainable organizations as well. And in general, in 2012 in UK, I think there was a large shift towards upcycling and waste management and environment and sustainability. So I think I was kind of caught in that wave because I saw that all around me when I was there. And then when I came back to India, I realized that this doesn't exist here yet. There isn't anyone talking about upcycling still. There isn't anyone talking about creativity in waste. That's what I feel was super important, because a lot of the times people speak about recycling and they talk about segregation, and then there's this whole other spectrum where you can be creative with your waste, and no one was talking about that. And that for me was really inspiring, and I started upcycling on the weekends, along with my full-time job that I did during the weekdays. And then 6 months of doing that, and I realized that there's an opportunity here, something that can be explored. And in India is such a big market, and the problem is so complex in India because everything is so disorganized. So there's while it's a big problem, there's also a huge opportunity there. So that's when I kind of decided to just get into the space completely, and I quit my job to start the Upcycle project, which is my first company, full time. And then the goal of that company as well was to change behavior through well designed products. So we used waste plastic, post consumer waste plastic, to create products that people could buy that were decorative products. And the goal was to start conversations, to start get people thinking about what waste could look like. But 4 years, 5 years of doing that, we saw a lot of traction where sales was concerned, and we saw a lot of traction where media was concerned, but we didn't see any change happening in behavior. And we didn't see those adults kind of talking about this problem once they made the purchase. And that really got me thinking as to, does this make sense? Because if I just want to make products, I can make it from virgin plastic, and that's actually better for me because virgin plastic is so much easier to work with, and people don't get that. And so I kind of, at the time, I was just thinking about what I wanted to do, and I was working on this not-for-profit project with the Global Shapers, the Mumbai hub, called Bottle Bricks, and we worked with about 1,500 students and waste plastics, and we created eco bricks with these students. And then when I was working with these students, I realized that these young guys can be like real change makers, right? So kids were actually not just getting their parents and their teachers involved, but they're getting like local political parties involved. They were getting the BMC involved in this whole conversation. And that's when it clicked that I kind of had to do something with kids. And then in 2018 was when I started Upcycler's Lab, as you see it today. And what I spoke about before was our 2 years journey so far. So for me personally, waste was a big motivator, of course, in UK. But then when I look back now, retrospectively, I see that even when I was a young kid, when I was about maybe 11 or 12, I used to travel abroad with my parents every summer. And my father loved to travel, and then we would come back, and I would see that I saw Indians abroad in Singapore or in America who would like really follow the rules and not litter and be really mindful about what they're doing. And then they would come to India, and then you'd have these like really big fancy cars, and someone just rolls down the window and throws their waste out, right? And that used to be a very big pet peeve for me. So now when I think back, I remember actually my friends calling me Kachra Wali, because I used to go back and like pick people's waste once they littered, and like throw it in the bin. So I see that my roots now, like I see that the kind of root for this was a lot earlier in life. But yeah, this is kind of how the whole journey transpired after my education.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So, if someone from finance makes the transition to some more sustainability, then you start retailing products using post-consumer recycled material, and then you decide to work on more behavior change elements. That's really cool.
Yes.
Today, just this morning, actually, on a webinar, I heard someone describe you as a behaviorist. Do you want to tell us a little bit about interest in behavioral economics, and how do you think that creates environmental impact or behavior change?
So for me, I got really excited about this as I started studying more and more about when behavior gets formed when I was doing my research for Upcycler's Lab. And I saw what I saw shocked me, because I always believed and thought that I had agency when I was making a choice, right? So I always believe that, okay, I make a certain choice because, uh, you know, I am able to make that choice. But when I started studying about this a little bit more, I realized that that's actually not true. Very often we make, especially in the space of consumption, we make choices that marketers want us to make, right? Because of the way the product is positioned, the way the product is packaged, and that's done on so much research, and they know you so well. They have so many data points on you that they know you're going to make that choice because of the way they positioned it to kind of feed into that need. And then, while that sounds really evil and sinister, I thought that was such an important way for us to bring light to good. Because a lot of the times what happens is that we don't translate this very mainstream marketing knowledge and marketing techniques of behavior and of behavior change and how they do it, to for social good. So we don't think about these things when we're talking about sustainability, which is why a lot of the tools that people make, or a lot of the things that are designed, are very drab, very focused on education, and it's not something that the layman wants to consume. So how do we actually change that, right? Like, how do we make it palatable for the person to consume and still kind of meet our environmental agenda and give them the necessary information that is needed for them to make a good choice? So that's when I started reading up about nudges and thinking about how we can really build all of this into our fight against climate change. So I can't say that I'm a behaviorist. I'm not there yet, but I definitely am on that journey, and it's something that really interests me and excites me.
What was kind of the inspiration behind the games that you create? Like, how do you go through the process of creating it? Do you do a mock-up? Do you sit and brainstorm with your teammates? Like, what is that process of creating these games?
So for us, when I started out, we didn't want to create our own games just internally, because that's the mistake I think a lot of people have made. Even when we were working with the Kuwaiti government, the organization that we're working with there actually told us they've been trying to develop games since the last 5 years and they haven't been successful. Because when you look at it as, yeah, yeah. So when we came along, they were like, yes, this is what we were trying to make, and we were failing. So we're very excited about this product. But I think when you look at it as just one stakeholder, and for me, my agenda is environment, right? So when I'm looking at game design just from that perspective, it's going to be a very boring game, because for me the main goal is to make sure that I get all the information in there and I give you all the possible data points, and that's not how game design should work. So we actually brought in two designers who we bring designers on board every year, so we don't work with a single designer. We bring new designers on board every year so that we have different perspectives. We have great relationships with all our old designers, so we go back to them for brainstorming as well. So it's usually a bunch of 2 or 3 designers at the very least, working on the product. Most of those designers, when I say designers, they're not just game designers. They're actually specifically have worked in creating children's products. So they understand what are the skills that a child needs to develop at a certain age, and how we can tie our product into that, so that a parent is satisfied that this product not only teaches their kid about the environment, but it's also meeting all of the other milestones that a child's learning should meet. So we bring these game designers on board. We come in with the perspective of sustainability. We also bring in other experts. So we get a lot of people once we have like a basic prototype ready. So initially we obviously go back and forth, this small team of us and the game designers, and we come up with concepts, and then we come up with ideas on what the gameplay will actually look like, and we create mock-ups for that. And then we test it out with a bunch of people, including parents, kids, to get their perspective on it, people from the education space to get their perspective on it, and also other people from the environment space, design space as well. And when we're actually doing this, we realize how we can kind of tweak it around and get all of these different perspectives into the product itself. So at the very beginning, I think the absolute first thing that we do is we define the outcomes. So for me, if I want to design a game, I start with, okay, I want to design a game on waste segregation. What are my 3 outcomes that I need to come out of this game. So what should the child learn, right? So one could be like, okay, they should learn the types of waste. They should know what waste goes into what bucket. So those are my two most important learning outcomes. And then we actually start designing the gameplay. And then once the gameplay is designed, we create a mock-up, we test it several times, we come up with various iterations, we look at the challenges, pitfalls. I'm also a part of this board game design group, which is hardcore into board gaming, so they give their inputs. And then we come up with a first line of product, which gets sold to the market. And then when we actually start selling, we get a lot more data points, because that's a sustainable way to get feedback, because people are actually paying for your product and then they buy it and then they say, this doesn't work or this works, or we really like this, we don't like this, we didn't like the material, we didn't like this, whatever it is. So then they come back to us with that feedback, and then we improve and we do a second iteration. So for us, I don't think we ever like launch a game and we never say like, this is it. I think every year we're kind of fine tuning that a little bit more, and getting better and better at it, because we don't have like super deep pockets to be able to do like a huge interview with like a million people and say, hey, this is the data points that we've come up with and this is the game we're going to design. So we do this in a very like bootstrapped startup way, where we start to sell our first iterations and then we get feedback and build on that.
That is so cool. It's so great to hear like the process that goes behind creating each of those games. I have so much appreciation for all of those little tiny steps that I had no idea about. How do you incorporate circularity into the game itself? So you just mentioned that one of your games is on waste segregation, but also like what are the materials that you use to make the products in the first place?
Yeah, so that was a big learning for me actually, because when we started out, Upcycler's Lab started as an activity box company. So we made boxes using post-consumer waste, because that's why it's called Upcycler's Lab, and that's why the name was Upcycler's Lab, because we created boxes that did like STEAM activities. So that's art, science, math, technology, activities for kids, all out of waste. So we would do, trash for toys kind of a format for science. We had art activities that also spoke about pollution and stuff like that. When I did that, I realized within a few months that we had customers from all over the country, and a lot of them even took the product and took it for their nieces and nephews abroad, took it to different countries elsewhere. And that really got me thinking, like, this is going to get, if this gets big and I'm actually exporting my country's waste to another country, that doesn't make me feel good about that at all. Because the plastic recycling systems may not exist everywhere. It might be really different. Even in India, we had people from Dharamshala buying our product, or like Shillong buying our product, and I don't know what the system is over there. I don't know if they have like a BMC that comes and collects and segregates and it's as efficient as Dharavi. Like, I don't know if that exists there. So that's when we moved to board games and storybooks and puzzles, and we use only paper in our products. We use only either recycled paper or FSC certified paper, which basically means that the paper is ethically sourced from sustainable forests. And then the product itself, the reason again we designed board games is because it's more long lasting than a single science experiment, which you will do once and then throw away. So board game typically lasts at least a couple of years. After that, you can give it to your sibling, you can donate it to another charity, or you could send it for recycling, because it's completely paper, so you can just like flatten it and send it. And most regions globally at least have a paper recycling system, if not any other system. So this is how we've tried to build in circularity in our processes itself as well. We change, like if the game designer says, okay, we need to have a 1-inch by 1-inch block, for example, on our board. But when we're manufacturing, we realize that if we just made it like 0.75 by 0.75, we would be saving on an entire sheet of paper. We do that. So we change our designs to fit the needs of the manufacturer and the sheet size that they have. And we also don't use any plastic based varnishes, which is also why we don't, a lot of people ask us, why don't you sell in physical stores like Hamleys or Crosswords? This is why, because a lot of those guys, offline distributors, require you to wrap your product in plastic for very sensible reasons, because people open the product and it gets damaged, and then who's going to be liable for that? But This is actually why we don't supply offline as well. It was a conscious decision we made, and these are some of the principles that we're using. We don't use varnish. We try to use good quality inks that are edible, but of course, there's still waste created in the process. We're still not there yet, where it's a completely zero waste product like yours, but this is what we've done so far.
Okay, Amishi, my question for you is how do the sustainable alternatives, in your case, sustainable games, compare with the alternative? What are ways in which we can redesign to actually compete with the currently existing games that are packaged in plastic, that are coated with varnish, etc.?
So, luckily in paper, it's a very the recycling process is very evolved. So you get almost the same quality. There are enough technologies out there to give you really high quality recycled paper as opposed to plastics, right? Where plastics still a lot of it is downcycled. It's not really recycled to the same quality level. So that doesn't happen with paper as much. There's some really great ways to recycle paper. There's some great companies out there that are doing very good quality FSC certified and recycled paper. So we haven't had that challenge yet because it is paper based. We refrain from using any kind of plastic, obviously. So even the inside is like corrugated. And we have the box which is plain brown, and now we've started just doing sleeves on top instead of having the print on the box. So you can like essentially throw out the sleeve eventually or send it for recycling, and then the box itself can be used for storage or for anything that you want to use at home. Eventually, what we also want to do is like on our platform, on our website, we want to create a resource center where we're going to keep putting different DIY projects that they can do using our packaging and our product itself. So once they're done with it after 5 years and they don't have a place where they can donate it, or they don't have a place where they can recycle it, they can actually upcycle it at home. And we also want to, in that same resource center, build a list of charities which are close enough to all of the areas that we're selling. So hopefully we'll be able to gather that data and see that, okay, we're getting a lot of orders from Delhi. What are the 5 charities we can partner with to donate these particular products after use in Delhi? So that's something that we want to give the customer, so that the customer doesn't have to do the work of actually going out and checking up on what's available near them.
This is something that you mentioned in the beginning that I want to go back to is your EcoBix project.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about it and how other people maybe can get involved?
Sure. So the EcoBricks project was a project that I co-led with some other great shapers as a part of Global Shapers, which is a World Economic Forum Youth Initiative that, of course, you're a part of as well in a different chapter. So I'm a part of the Mumbai chapter, and we did this project called Bottle Bricks, where we essentially created EcoBricks. So EcoBricks is not a concept that I've made or that we've created. It's a concept that is being used globally in low-income housing, in building low-cost structures. So eco-bricking is essentially taking a large plastic bottle, a sturdy PET bottle, and filling it with thin plastics to get a half kg brick. And then people use these bricks to actually construct the same way you would use clay bricks. So EcoBricks, where we got to know about it from was this. It was happening in Indonesia and the Philippines, and it's also being used in Guatemala. In Guatemala, they built about 110 schools using this material along with the children there. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So we started thinking about it, and we said, hey, why don't we do this in Mumbai? And it was actually started. This project was started by a friend of mine who's a shaper. Her name is Krishna. She's actually a mountaineer. She was one of the youngest Indian women to climb Everest at a very early age. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
She's super cool, and then when she's climbing, when she's actually climbing Everest and on a lot of her other expeditions, she's done 7 summits and all of that. She saw how much waste was on the mountain where there was no human being, and there was so much waste there. And that was a real pain point for her. And then she came back and she just had this idea, and she discussed it with me, and then we started this project. And then of course other shapers joined on, and Ruchi, Akshat, and I, these other shapers, we got together. We worked with 1,500 students from 50 schools. We partnered with another organization to work with these students, and then these students actually collected and made 7,000 eco bricks, which is a lot of plastic, right? Like,
Yeah, that's massive.
people don't understand how much half a kg of plastic is. Thin plastic, because it's so light, but like half a kg of thin plastics is essentially 3 to 4 bagfuls, and like huge bagfuls of plastic, which is a lot. And when these kids actually made these eco breaks in a month and a half, and they championed the cause, they got everybody involved, like I mentioned. And then we used these eco breaks. We constructed Mumbai's first structure using these eco bricks. And we used only bamboo, natural mud cob, all other natural materials like natural stone to make a security cabin using this material in Bandra. It's open for everyone to see. It's on a football ground, and it's sustained 2 Mumbai monsoons, so we know it works, guys.
That's
Mumbai
phenomenal.
monsoons are horrid. So yeah, so this is what we made, and this was a prototype project that we did. The idea was to do a project that can prove that this model is sustainable for a country like India and for a city like Mumbai. And now we have interest from lots of hubs globally and from people who globally who want to replicate this project. So what we see our role as is now is to just kind of support them in executing their project and giving them all of the information that we have and the technical knowledge that we kind of gained during 2 years of working on this project. So this is kind of how people, if they want to replicate this in their cities or in their towns, they can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to kind of, along with other shapers, guide them on how they can replicate this.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. If anyone wants to get involved, you know who to reach out to now. Okay, so really quickly, in few words, what does sustainability mean to you?
Oh my God, so much. In a few words, I think sustainability is the one truth. I think right now, I don't think we can move beyond and do anything else if we haven't tackled this problem, and if you're not thinking about this problem in everything that we do. So for me, I think it's just an all-encompassing truth right now, because I think you and I, people like us, are so involved in this day to day, and we read so much about it that we don't see anything else. So yeah, that's how it is. How it is for me as well.
Okay, what is that one piece of advice you'd like to give other entrepreneurs, kind of in the environmental space who want to start, don't know where to start? Any advice that you'd like to give them?
I made this terrible mistake of just starting and, not getting myself educated enough on it, not going out and working in this space before. I would really strongly recommend that people who want to start first at least volunteer with organizations like ours, or work or intern in organizations who that work in the environment and sustainability space, and then like really narrow down on what they want to do, because sustainability is a loosely used term that's thrown around for everything these days, but it's a very very broad spectrum of activities. So what is it that they are interested in within this broad spectrum, and then work in that specific space and understand the ground reality, because it's a very long, very challenging road, and it becomes like an addiction. And once you get on board, you can't really get out. So it's better to really know what you're getting into. And so instead of like, sometimes I just had a conversation with this young graduate 2 weeks ago who got back from my alma mater, Bath, and she came back and she said, "Hey, I heard that you do this, and I want to get into the environment space." And then I had a 1 hour conversation with her, and at the end of it, she realized that she wanted a full-time job in another space, because this is not something she wanted to do all the time. And then, but she still cared about this deeply, so she wanted to volunteer instead, or she wanted to work, part-time, or give her skills as a consultant. So I think there's other ways to help besides just being an entrepreneur, because I think there's a lot to be said about collaboration in this space as well. So I
Absolutely.
really think they should think about what they want to do before they get in.
Nice. Okay, great. Well, it's been really lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing about your journey, what sustainability means to you, what you're trying to do in creating behavior change and people's mindset around sustainability through fun, awesome, accessible games that families and communities can play. And of course, all of your work outside of that as well with EcoBreaks. It's been so much fun learning from you. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Seher. I'm so excited to have done this, and your work is so amazing as well. You remain an inspiration from the other side as well.
So, so much to learn still. And hopefully, we'll go together. That's awesome.
Yes, yes. All right.